This wasn't just betrayal, it was a calculated invasion disguised as family love. And the truth, way more twisted than you think. And it gets worse and messier. Imagine waking up one morning to find the two people you trust most in the world, slowly building a world that doesn't include you. Your sister, your husband, both smiling, both acting normal. But something feels off. Like the air pressure changed, and you're the only one who notices. Even your gut was confused, which is rare, because your gut is usually screaming, not whispering. At first, everyone said I was overreacting. They're just close. You're being insecure. Families should get along right. But that's only the version they wanted me to believe. Because what I was seeing wasn't just closeness. It was familiarity, intimacy, inside jokes I wasn't part of. And here's the thing about gaslighting. It doesn't start with a lie. It starts with making you doubt what you already know is true. Because here's the part no one talks about in these situations. And this is where the story gets suspicious. It started small. My sister began showing up unannounced. A lot. I was just in the neighborhood. I missed you guys. Can I borrow your husband to help me move this couch? Sure, fine. Normal sister stuff, right? Except, she started dressing differently around him. Laughing louder at his jokes. Touching his arm when she talked. And he started lighting up when she walked in the room. Not the way you light up for family. The way you light up for someone you're trying to impress. I mentioned it once. Big mistake. You're being paranoid. She's your sister. What's wrong with you? Maybe you're just jealous that we get along. And just like that, I became the villain in my own story. It's like watching someone slowly repaint your house while telling you the color hasn't changed. But the craziest part, I wasn't imagining it. Because this next detail changes everything you think you know about loyalty. One night, after too much wine, my sister pulled me aside. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You know, he really gets me." I laughed it off. But she didn't laugh back. She just stared at me with this look. Like she was testing me, waiting to see if I'd catch it. "I think," she said slowly, "that if things were different, he and I would have been perfect together." I froze. "But things aren't different," I said. She smiled. "Yeah, I know." And then she hugged me. Like nothing happened. Like she didn't just admit she'd mentally auditioned for my life. Some experts would call this emotional affair territory. I call it a robbery wearing a compliment costume. Because she didn't just want my husband's attention. She wanted me to know she had it. And here's where it gets darker. Because what came next wasn't an accident, it was a strategy. After that night, things escalated. She started texting him directly, not group chats, private ones. "Can you help me with something? You're so good at this stuff. I don't know what I'd do without you." And he ate it up. Suddenly, he was her handyman, her therapist, her emotional support husband. Oh, sorry, my husband. I started noticing patterns. When I was working late, she'd come over. When I was out with friends, she'd call him. When I was tired and went to bed early, they'd stay up talking. And every time I questioned it. "You're being controlling. She's going through a tough time. Why can't you just be supportive?" I was watching my marriage get remodeled in real time, and I was being told I didn't have a permit to care. It's like being the architect of your own life, and someone else starts drawing blueprints right over yours. And when you complain, they hand you a hard hat and call you ungrateful. But here's the detail everyone ignores in these situations. And this is the part that still haunts me. I wasn't snooping. Let me be clear about that. His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I glanced at it. And I saw her name. With a heart emoji. My sister, my husband, a heart emoji. I opened it. And what I found wasn't sexting. It wasn't nudes. It was worse. It was emotional cheating in its purest form. Messages like, "I wish I'd met you first. You make me feel seen in a way no one else does. Sometimes I think about what our life would have been like." And him. He was matching her energy. "You're so easy to talk to. I feel the same way. This stays between us, okay? This stays between us." That line right there, that's the moment a boundary became a betrayal. Because secrecy isn't intimacy. It's premeditated distance. And they both knew it. People think affairs start with sex, but they actually start with sentences like, "You understand me better than she does." They start when someone decides your partner's emotional world is up for grabs. And my sister, she grabbed with both hands. But here's what broke me more than the messages. It's what happened when I confronted them. I printed the messages. I sat them both down. I put the pages on the table like evidence in a trial. And you know what my sister said? "You're overreacting." Not an apology, not denial. Just dismissal. She looked at me like I was being dramatic for caring that she'd emotionally seduced my husband. And him. He got defensive. "We're just friends. You're twisting this into something it's not. I can't believe you invaded my privacy." Wait, pause. I invaded his privacy. I'm sorry, is that what we're calling reading messages, where my sister and my husband discuss their imaginary alternate universe together? This is the playbook, by the way. When people get caught, they don't apologize. They make you the villain for discovering the truth. It's like setting your house on fire and then blaming you for smelling smoke. But here's the thing I didn't expect. My sister didn't stop. She doubled down. She said, "Maybe if you were a better wife, he wouldn't need to talk to me." Let that sink in. My own sister, the person who watched me plan my wedding, who gave a toast about love and loyalty, just blamed me for her betrayal. And my husband, he didn't defend me. He just sat there, silent, which, in that moment, told me everything I needed to know. But this is where the story takes a turn no one saw coming. Not even me. Because what I did next, it changed everything. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just left the room. And in that silence, I made a choice. I wasn't going to fight for a man who let my sister compete for him. I wasn't going to explain to my sister why betraying me was wrong. If they didn't already know, then I wasn't the teacher they needed. I called a lawyer the next day. I blocked my sister on everything. And I told my husband he had 48 hours to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. Did he want to be the guy who rebuilt trust? Or the guy who burned it and blamed the match? He chose poorly. He said I was being extreme. That I was punishing him for something that didn't even happen. And that's when I realized he didn't think he did anything wrong. Because in his mind, as long as he didn't physically cheat, he was innocent. But here's the harsh truth about emotional affairs. They're worse. Because physical cheating can be a moment of weakness. Emotional cheating, that's intentional, that's sustained, that's choice after choice after choice. And my sister, she knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't want my husband. She wanted to prove she could have him. She wanted to win. And in her mind, she did. But here's the part that still keeps me up at night. And it's the question I wish I'd asked sooner. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. I just didn't want to see them. My sister always had a way of testing boundaries. When we were kids, she'd borrow my things without asking. She'd befriend my friends and slowly make them hers. She'd imitate the way I dressed, talked, even laughed. At the time, I thought it was admiration. Now, I realize it was rehearsal. She was practicing being me. And when I got married, she didn't just want to be close to my life. She wanted to try it on. The compliments she gave my husband weren't just nice. They were auditions. "You're so handy. You're so funny. You're so patient. She was building a resume. And my husband, bless his oblivious heart, thought it was just sisterly affection. But here's what I learned. When someone constantly needs validation from your partner, they're not bonding with your family. They're bonding with your role. And my sister, she wanted my role. Not because she loved him, but because I had him. Psychologists call this sibling rivalry in adulthood. I call it emotional identity theft. And here's the detail that makes this even more twisted. Because I wasn't the first person she did this to. After everything blew up, I started talking to people. Old friends, family members. And guess what I found out? This wasn't new behavior. In high school, my sister dated my best friend's crush. In college, she got close to her roommate's boyfriend. At her last job, she was weirdly flirty with her coworker's fiancé. There was a pattern, and the pattern was simple. She wanted what other women had. Not because it was valuable, but because it was theirs. It's not love, it's not attraction. It's competition disguised as connection. And the saddest part, she probably doesn't even realize she's doing it. Because in her mind, she's the victim. She's the one who's misunderstood. She's the one who just connects deeply with people. But deep connection doesn't require secrecy. It doesn't require flirting. And it sure as hell doesn't require heart emojis sent to your sister's husband. One therapist I talked to said it perfectly. Some people don't want your life. They want the feeling of being chosen over you. And that hit me like a truck. Because that's exactly what my sister wanted. But here's the question I had to ask myself. And it's the one that changed everything. Why did my husband let it happen? Because here's the truth. My sister couldn't have done this alone. She needed a participant. And he showed up. Every single time. He didn't shut it down. He didn't set boundaries. He didn't say, hey, this feels inappropriate. He enjoyed it. He liked being the center of attention. He liked being the hero in her story. He liked feeling wanted by two women. And when I confronted him about it, he said, I didn't think it was a big deal. But here's what not a big deal actually looked like. Late night texts, secret conversations, emotional intimacy he wasn't giving me. And when I asked him why he didn't tell me about any of it, he said, I didn't want to upset you. Translation, I knew it was wrong, so I hid it. Because that's what I didn't want to upset you really means. It means I valued my comfort over your trust. And that's the moment I realized. He didn't protect our marriage. He protected his ego. And my sister, she knew that. She saw the crack in our foundation, and she wiggled her way in like emotional black mold. Slow, quiet, toxic. But here's the part that surprised me most. It's what I learned about myself. For weeks after everything exploded, I blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't attentive enough. Maybe I didn't make him feel appreciated. Maybe I should have been cooler about them being close. But then I stopped. And I asked myself a different question. Would I have done this to someone I loved? The answer was no. I would never emotionally invest in my sister's partner. I would never send secretive, flirty messages. I would never make someone feel unseen in their own relationship. So why was I accepting that behavior toward me? Why was I shrinking myself to make space for their betrayal? Here's what I learned. Healing doesn't start with understanding why they did it. It starts with understanding why you tolerated it. And I tolerated it because I was afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of breaking up my family. Afraid of admitting that the people I loved most didn't love me the same way. But fear is a terrible relationship counselor. It'll keep you in situations that are killing you softly. And I was dying. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just slowly disappearing in my own life. So I made a choice. I chose me. I filed for divorce. I cut my sister off completely. And I started rebuilding. Not the life I had, but the life I deserved. Here's the brutal truth they don't tell you about betrayal. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, gradual, wrapped in smiles and I love yous. Sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who know exactly where to aim. My sister didn't steal my husband. She tried to steal my identity. And my husband, he let her audition for it. But here's what I know now. Loyalty isn't about what people say. It's about what they do when no one's watching. It's about boundaries they set without being asked. It's about protecting your peace like it's sacred. Because it is. And if someone can't do that, they don't belong in your life. Not as a partner, not as family, not as anything. And if you think this story is messy, wait until you hear what happened when I saw them together 6 months later.